Hey, everybody. I did add 2 photos to the thing. Let me give you the number.
Oh, I got it here. I just gotta get my act together.
It's all right.
I spent too much time building that page here because I didn't pay any attention to it beforehand.
Wow, 35 shows. You did a number on a mic stand or mic clamp. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, same way with mine, man. It's on there. I got them all 4 like that, actually.
Good deal.
Breaker. Is anybody watching? Leave a comment. We don't even have the first comment. Come on, people. Oh, nice hat.
From the Man Cave Studios in South Parkersburg, West Virginia. Live and uncensored.
Yeah, well, fuck you.
This is Roberts Report with your host, Craig Roberts.
And I've been thinking that maybe it's time to let them know that we're alive. Everybody, lift your hands to the sky. If they feel it, then let them know that we will survive.
Welcome, everybody, to Roberts Report. Craig Roberts, Scott Martin.
Hey, number 35.
Number 35. And we also have on our panel this evening Mr. Larry, the karaoke guy, Larry Parmenter.
Yep, and we intended for Larry to sit at the other table, didn't we? But we'll fix that.
And while he's doing that, folks, we also have, as we put in the
Hey, Larry.
title, we have Rob Liotti, and I got your name pronunciation correct this time. And he also brought around, as what he referred to as that fuck, Daryl Shorter. He's here, so we're ready to roll, guys. How y'all doing down there in Charleston, South Carolina? I'm sure you got better weather than we got here.
Hey, actually, we've got 50s for the next 3 days, so that's not bad for you.
Yeah.
55 tomorrow.
Yeah, thing is, though, about come April or 1st of May, they'll be in flip-flop shorts and probably tank tops, I'm going to guess. So, but anyway.
Shortest day of the year today, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, too, Scott, I put on, I forgot to tell you this, I did reload his thing, their promo.
Gotcha.
Under the tab, so
Gotcha.
And it'll work this time. We got new horsepower
computer
under the hood, so hopefully we'll be able to present that to people properly this time. Apologize for not being able to do that the last time. So, how you doing there, Rob?
Rob is good. It's chilly here. It's 55. Now I know that doesn't seem, chilly to you, but in this part of the world, it is chilly, and it's probably heading towards the 40s tonight. So that's cold for here.
And poor alligators down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see you got the long sleeve shirt on there. So
I do.
Well,
and shorts.
And shorts.
Right.
Are you both in South Carolina?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Daryl, we sort of know Rob's background. So, what's your background? What do you do for a living outside of co-starring in Family Values?
My family business is real estate. We do property management, and that takes up an abundance of my time. I don't know if the word has gotten out in the nation or what, but Charleston is the place to live, and everybody knows it. And because of that, everybody's coming into the area. We've got all sorts of plants that are developing and construction everywhere, and that just causes us to be incredibly busy. But that's not my passion. My passion has always been acting and entertainment. And this was an avenue that Rob opened up for me, and has been quite productive for me as well, with the exception of very time-consuming. So that's kind of the story of what I do.
Yeah, I noticed we have a plant down there. I work for DuPont, so I got to visit the one there in Cooper River not too long ago. And so I sort of know what your roads are like down there, and yeah, they suck. But
Rob and I were recently talking. There is no infrastructure here in the Charleston area. We just were not planning for this big of an influx this quickly, and our politicians weren't prepared for this, and now we're having to suffer. What normally is a 20-minute run can take an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah, but I needed to finish my story there, though. Parkersburg is definitely going to be much worse than Charleston. You could close your eyes and you'll know whenever you reach the Wood County line, because there's a pothole just about as soon as you hit the Wood County line on. So, but we're all out of money though. So anyway,
Oh, you got all that new tax money now from the bill you guys passed.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to go there?
Sure. I live on the other side of the river.
Well, first of all, Rob, how about an update on family values? That seems like a good place to start. How's that coming along? Any updates from last time?
No, Family Values is coming along. It's still in post-production, which is, I don't know if I mentioned previously, but post-production is typically a major pain in the ass, and this is proving no different this time around. But I think there's about an hour and 20 minutes produced. So there's about 30 more minutes to produce in post-production, which doesn't seem like much, but it's just softwares are quirky, and making sure that your colorization is right and making sure all the sound is properly leveled. You know, it's a pain. It's time-taking, but it's coming along great.
Good. Any kind of ETA when can expect it to hit the waves? Or is that still way too early to say?
It's not way too early to say. I think,
or maybe a goal. Yeah, I'm sure you.
Well,
somebody has a goal.
Yeah, a goal's fine. I think my original, I don't know if I guess you could call it a quasi commitment to network was hopefully mid-November to late November for the first. I think it was 4, but that's when the network was calling for episodes. So I said, we can give you, I think 4 or 5 episodes or whatever the number was. I don't recall. I think by the middle of November, and then the rest by about this time at the end of December. So because the format changed to full feature film, that means it's all being culminated, put together all at once. So
right.
I've been in communication with them. They know it's coming. It's just a matter of, it's really just technical more than anything else. So it's coming. Did that answer your question? Well, I'm going to say probably by the first of the year-ish, right there. It should be, it should be headed that way.
Yeah, that's excellent. I can't wait to see it. I mean, it's based on what I've, the little pieces that I've seen, I really can't wait to see it. So, do you want to, Scott, are you in a place to, you want to go ahead and...
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's play up their clip.
You want me to set this up for you? No?
Sure. Can you still hear us?
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead, let it go.
Okay.
Here's Tony. Whole crew has said he killed.
Outsider? Maybe to some.
Out salesman.
Well, sir, we've actually had a lot of rain this week, so it's been a bit slow.
I didn't ask you for a buckle weather report. Are you happy?
I am, yes.
Great, I want you to be happy. We want you to be happy, don't we? Absolutely. Our people need to be happy. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Your wife is out there. What is wrong with you?
She wants some of it too.
You sick fuck.
Anthony, I'm not going to be able to protect you. This is not good.
I say we do them now.
Took care of that.
Morelli is going to kill us for this.
Introduce to the boss.
I don't think that's what he has in mind. Good day, Miss Samuels.
And with unparalleled integrity.
God damn!
Anthony Morelli is a charmer.
Have you heard from the reporter?
Not yet.
I can't stand fucking rats.
Are you coming over to my sister's for pasta later?
I didn't hear any audio on that. Could you guys hear it? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can do the setup. Since I've got Daryl with me tonight, I can do the setup post.
Hey, first of all, I want to say my favorite clip out of that was the guy that goes, "God damn!" Who was that guy?
The governor.
Who was that?
Yeah, I heard that. You know, I heard some feedback on that a few times, and that's a guy by the name of Ward Irvin, and Ward played the governor, Governor Elliott Hardy, who is an incumbent Democratic governor who is, you know, the very quintessential Democrat, you know, anti-gun, more of a, I guess, a social type agenda. Certainly not a fiscal conservative, and he has a very difficult time with the fact that Morelli is what he considers to be a womanizing playboy and a crooked car dealer, and he is not very happy about the fact that the people happen to like Morelli a lot, and his seat that he has, you know, he's had a career of 30 years in politics, and he is very, very concerned about losing his seat to this playboy car dealer, and he does a really nice job, you know, with that type of emotion, and in a nutshell, that I agree with you. That's a real powerful part of the clip, just with those 2 words. So I agree.
So I might have asked you this before, but were you the one that wrote the entire screenplay to this, or
I did.
Did you? Okay,
cool. I did. Yeah.
Now, Daryl,
I did.
What do you play in this? What's your part?
Well, I can give you my interpretation of the part. My actual character name is Brian Scraps Gill, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but I am his childhood friend, and he has divulged to me a secret, and I'm at a point in my life in this story that I'm hurting for money, and I'm going to do anything I can to get the money that I need. And I know that my good old friend Tony here has the money that I need, and I'm going to milk it out of him as much as I can. And so I kind of pop up in the most inconvenient times throughout the story, getting my money, or I'm going to tell. That's basically who I am and what I do within this particular scheme of things. Wherever I appear, trust me, I just don't fit in. And that kind of plays along with my normal life. But anyway.
Okay. For some reason, earlier your audio was messed up there a little bit for some reason.
I'm sorry.
But I mean, we got the gist of what you said. You could understand it. It just sounded like when people have others on the news, you're not supposed to hear what their voice sounds like.
Okay. Am I too far away? Is this better if I'm a little closer?
It sounds like it may be just your internet breaking up or something like that.
Okay, could be. Yeah.
Okay. So how long have you and Rob known each other? How did you meet? Did you just meet through? How did you meet?
He had several casting calls for this particular production, and we would send in information about ourselves to him. I originally cast for the governor's assistant, if you will, and he seemed very interested. Sent him several photos, and he said he would get back with me, and he liked everything that I had presented to him. Well, I didn't hear anything back. I still kept in touch with the goings on of the show, because he would post that things were in recording. They were starting to record scenes, and he would put out that help was indeed needed. And finally, one evening, it was a text message that I received through Facebook, and it was from Rob, and he said, I've got a part that I'd like for you to try out for this particular show. I need you to put together an audition and do it. And Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but he said, do it as if you're doing it for an HBO show.
True.
So that's what I did. And I got it back to him, and he said to me on the phone that evening, he said, I've got good news and I've got bad news. I said, oh, okay, great. He said, what do you want to hear first? And I said, well, Bad news, probably I didn't get the part, and that's good. I can deal with it. And he said, no, let me finish. The good news is you got the part. You nailed it. And I said, well, that's great. He said, the bad news is I got to tell the other guy that he's been kicked off the show. And I'm like, I don't want to be a part of the bad news. I really don't. So evidently there was some goings on with not showing up or whatever the case is. I don't know how to deal with it. But so that's how Rob and I met. And from this production, I like to think we became fairly good friends. I know his girlfriend; she's real sweet, and he and I pretty much communicate to each other on a nightly basis. He keeps me up to date on how the post production is going with the show, and we get rare updates on some of the actors. That's another topic altogether, but. I got to tell you, from my perspective, seeing this thing put together, I've worked on a couple of other shows. I just got finished with Living the Dream, which was a show that is airing in England. You can catch it on YouTube. I play the county officer. But they had money in their budget for their show. This show had no budget whatsoever. And that guy right there, Rob, I kid you not, he is a one-man band. He got an awesome photographer, sound operation, if you will, as well. And the two of them working together just gelled beautifully. And he took what was in his mind with no money now and put just what you saw there in that little clip very professionally. Very professionally. I'd love to see where this thing is going to go. I really would. He's got some interest in it. He's been working very hard putting it together. And the creativity that I've seen, the ingenuity with no money, has just been phenomenal. And, he doesn't do things on the fly, but he does do things on the fly. What I mean by that is when he comes in and actually acts the parts, you won't see a script in front of Rob. But when he comes in to direct the parts, he already knows up here what he's going to do. And when he plays it out, he used the photographer's input, the videographer's input, but he had that scene in his mind, and to see it actually come to fruition from nothing was truly amazing to watch from my perspective. So it was just a neat aspect for me to see, how this whole thing was put together from day one, to where it is now.
Well, the cinematography. Hey, thank you. The cinematography in that does not look like your average homemade video. You know what I mean?
It's not. It's not.
You can definitely tell that you've put a lot into it, and for it to look. So,
well, and if I could interject, one of the things when you're, I guess, taking on a project like this, your director of photography, who in this particular case was a young lady by the name of Julia Levy. Julia has had, considerable experience as a photographer and as a videographer, and she's worked on a number of projects, and she has a very good eye. And she and I, it's very important for the director of photography and the director to get along. In as much as for me, I want the shot that I want, but I'm also open to the director of photography's input with respect to maybe we need to try this angle or whatever the case may be. So we worked very well together in that way. With respect to budget or budgetary constraints versus finished product, unfortunately, the problem right now with and in quotation marks, I'll use Hollywood, and I've certainly dealt with Hollywood and Atlanta and New York. But, the issue is right now, these folks, production companies, generally speaking, want everything handed to them. So you have got to basically give them a product before anything is really going to come to fruition. And then even irrespective of whether your budget is $0 to $1 million or whatever the case may be, whatever you put together may or may not work. So then you're basing your success on the visual and whether the story has legs and whether it has appeal to viewers. So a lot of things came together with respect to our director of photography, with myself, with the story. I think the writing was good, and then it's a matter of literally putting together an ensemble of actors who can deliver, and that's not easy. And I think I was pretty successful. I think Daryl could probably attest to this. I think that one of my stronger suits with this production in general was I got a lot out of people that they probably didn't realize they had, within them, I suppose, from an acting standpoint. What do you think?
I'm sorry. I agree. I agree 100%. There was one exception to that, but you made it work in that aspect. The talent that you had was very good. They were very good with your direction. They were very good with bringing those particular characters out. Some of those characters were quite unique, to say the least. You were a nutcase. You still are in real life, but that's another story. I really think it was amazing what they brought, and you handpicked every single one of them. And the diversity of who you selected and all local talent was very creative, was very ingenious, and how you were able to have each character play off of each other was really unique. My favorite character in the whole show is your bodyguard Enzo, and I've told you this a couple of times. He's just like a big kid. I mean, he carries a sidearm and he does your dirty work for you, but he's just a big kid. You got to rein him in sometimes. You're like, I know we can use bad words here. I'm not one that likes to use bad words, but the famous line you turn to him, you said, "Shut the fuck up! I mean, what the fuck's wrong with you?" And it's just, it's hilarious. He is all serious, and you're like, leave me alone. So go do whatever. Go do whatever it is that you do. But you're just in. You didn't really have to do much direction with regards to the actors and actresses. You kind of let them work it, and if they didn't deliver, you kind of backed up a little bit and gave them a different angle to approach. Right. I swear to you, every time there was a scene that was shot, and there was a group of us, you would say the same thing, but it was very effective because it stuck in my mind. Give it something effective, give it your A game, but do it like you're going to do it for HBO, and I kid you not. And I think that's what got everybody's attention. At least it got my attention.
Right. I would agree with that.
So I would agree with that. When you had to tell
that's funny. That's funny, Rob. I'm sorry, Craig. I didn't mean to interrupt you,
go ahead.
But when he said "do it like you're doing HBO," it kind of has that Sopranos feel to me. Yeah,
I would agree. People have asked me, what is the show like, and that the trailer that you played, I think. A lot of what you don't see there is what's coming in post-production. The vast majority of what was left was not a part of that particular theatrical trailer. So there's more of a political element that you have not seen yet, as well as Anthony getting his hands dirty and some interplay with a bit of romance and this type of thing. So the story's, I think, very well rounded, but it kind of ends with some ambiguity because it's a pilot and it's meant to spin off onto a series. But the point of the matter is that I guess, but I best described it, I think, as Sopranos meets House of Cards. So when you combine those two elements, along with what I really didn't give consideration to, and that was really what ended up, I think we talked about on the last show, what ended up being really dark humor, which wasn't intentional. It just happened to reveal itself with respect to the interplay of the actors. But, I knew there were lines, as I said before, that, as I was writing, I laughed and I said, that's a funny line, and it'll sound funny coming out of Anthony and what have you, but most of the people that watch it go, man, it's hilarious. I think it's really funny, and it was never intended to be that way, but there you are. That's where it ended up. So
when you had to tell the guy that Daryl got the part, was it Anthony Barella that told him, or was it Rob Liotta that told him?
Well, in that case, it was the director. But here's what happened with that. Because the director needs to, I'm in third person now, but the director needs to talk a little bit about Daryl because he's on the show, and I'm here too. So let me say this. Initially, what happened was the part was tentatively cast to an actor that happens to live, I think, around the Savannah area. And he had submitted an audition video, and he did quite well, and I liked what he did. And so that I can kind of preface and back up a little bit, just an expansion on what Daryl said, you know, his character is actually based on a friend of mine from college who I used to call Scraps. And without going into too much detail, Scraps and I had a lot of fun together. And basically, this character is very quirky. As Daryl said, they're childhood friends. They've known each other for a long time. He shows up at very inopportune times, and he's an out of place type misfit, basically. And so, for all intents and purposes, this other actor was cast. And I think that he had a bit of I think it was a scheduling commitment more than anything else, if I recall. This has been about a year and a half ago during tentative preliminary casting, but there was some type of conflict between his timetable and what he had commitments on and what we were trying to do. And my basic thought process when it comes to, you know, dealing with this type of thing is, you know, if you don't have time or it doesn't meet your time, you know, your schedule or your commitments, I really don't give a shit. Either you're in or you're not. So in this particular case, I basically, because of his time commitments, and, you know, no offense to him, but his time commitments didn't match up with mine. So I put out a casting notice, or casting notice came out from the production company, I should say, and Daryl happened to answer, and he was looking at a different role in the production, and after talking to him, I was like, you know, there's something about this guy that I think fits this particular role, and I asked him, you know, to submit an audition video, and he did, and he pulled it off really well, and his performance is pretty stellar as far as I'm concerned. So,
Daryl, are you born and raised in Charleston, or are you from somewhere else? So you implanted kind of like Rob is.
I was actually born in Dunoon, Scotland. My father was in the Navy, but I've been in Charleston most of my life. I was in Scotland the first 4 years. So I have dual citizenship, two passports. And when I travel abroad, going in between other countries, I always use a UK passport because it's so much easier to get through between the other countries.
So I got to know, do you do a good Scottish accent?
Absolutely.
Oh, can you do it for? Oh, shit. I was going to say do it.
I just don't talk like they do. I can do a Southern accent, even though I'm not from down south, but I cannot pull off a Scottish accent. That's just, you have to be drunk to do that, first off, and I don't do a lot of drinking.
And I can only ever think of two. I can think of "Get in my belly." I think Fat Bastard is Scottish.
Okay.
Is he Scottish?
Aye.
And then, then Captain, if I push her any farther, she might blow, or something like that.
Right. Craig, could you mute his microphone by chance?
No, I'm controlling the sound, but
perfect.
Whose microphone?
Mine.
Oh. So anyway, so Daryl, to his credit, is a very good actor, and he and I had a good time together. There was one scene in particular that we shot in what was called, the scene I believe was entitled Scrap's Hovel, where he lives, And in the clip or in the trailer, you probably saw that I kicked in a door and made my way very surreptitiously through this ransacked kind of residence, and I happened upon Daryl, and I think that was one of my more memorable days of shooting, in as much as Daryl showed up at a restaurant where I was having dinner with my sometimes wife, and he showed up, and I was not happy, or Anthony was not happy about his appearance at the restaurant, again looking for money, and I ended up leaving with my driver and showing up at his house and kicking his door in, and I think putting the fear of God in scraps to never do that again. But that was an interesting scene. And Daryl, you can expand on that a little bit. The fun that we had shooting that scene was pretty interesting.
Well, do you want me to tell them the background as
Sure.
to how we found that spot? I've told Joe I'm in property management. We actually managed that property. At least we did. I've recently sold it on behalf of the owner. But that was abandoned units that the owner just would not fix up. And when he said, I need a slum place for where you're going to be living. And he originally thought to put me in a one of those cargo trailers that you would open up, and there I would be. And I said, I've got this place, West Ashley, that's just outside of Charleston. I said, it's perfect. I'll send you some photos of it. So we went over there, and the unit right next door had honest to God, had a dead animal carcass in the hallway. That's how bad this place was. Wow. I wouldn't use that side because it was so bad. So we ended up using the side that we were on. And we just had to make it look like that's where I habitated, if that's even a word, kind of like an animal. And I think we pulled it off pretty nicely. So I had bare minimum, if anything, that was in there. And my room consisted of a blow-up mattress, a couple dirty clothes, a chair, and two pictures on the wall. One was a poster of Anthony Morelli for governor, and another one was a picture of us as the childhood friends. And those two pieces of artwork, if you will, are very significant in that particular scene, and they kind of carry through the whole show. And that's one of the first scenes in the show, if I'm not mistaken, that we have very distinct interaction between Anthony and myself. So it's a character that I couldn't really relate to, so I had to bring him out. I just went with it. He said, get clothes that were absolutely not dirty, but wrinkle them up, put them in a ball, sleep on them overnight, whatever you have to do to make them look, well worn, which is what I did. And it was unique being the underdressed guy when everybody else is dressed up in suits, and here I come all sloppy and disheveled, if you will.
Some of the flippin' Vegas shows kind of resemble what you just described. I don't know if you ever watched that show before, being in real estate, but some of them slum houses, of course, Las Vegas has seen their very lows, and some of them houses look like gangs used to live in them. That one had reptiles and snakes living in the backyard, and so. But anyway, it just kind of reminded me of that when you were saying that.
Hey, Daryl, I had a question for you. We kind of got Rob's whole kind of life story the first time we had him on. So, how long have you done theater/acting, and what got you started? You got me interested in that when you started talking about, where you'd been.
It's always been a hobby. When I went to college, my major was speech and dramatic arts, and I had always loved public speaking. I had always loved acting. I had always loved any type of drama. Not to get too personal in my family life, we have two children, and our daughter, who Rob has met, she is very much into acting. So, and that's not typical within my family's background or my wife's family background. There's no actors in the family line. So I've always had an interest. when I was growing up, there wasn't internet. There wasn't, YouTube and Facebook and all the technology tools that there are now. So the opportunities that were around when I was wanting to act were the background extras that they would have over at the mall for shows that would come in town. I kind of got out of it, stuck with real estate for many years. I've been in real estate now 26 years, but the acting bug, you either have it or you don't, from my personal perspective, has always been there. And I had an agent here in the Charleston area that was getting me a couple of things, and I switched to another agent out of Savannah because Georgia's really pulling in a lot of creativity, and they have a lot of incentives for movies and shows that come around. So I'm working real close with this particular agent. Rob and I hooked up individually, outside of that agency, and I was able to pursue this. But it's just something that has always driven me. Something else on a side note, kind of acting. I was also in television news for a couple of years. I have a degree in broadcast meteorology, so I was a on-air weather person. That professional weather guesser is what I called it, that I did for a couple of years, but I got out of it because there is no stability in television, especially in the local market. You can be there one day, and the very next day get called into the news director's desk and say, we've got to let you go for a stupid reason. Yeah. And I just wasn't comfortable with that at all. So I got out of news, got out of weather, still loved acting, and it's just something that I've done on the side. I've never really considered it a career. If it turns out to be as such, that's great. If not, it's a hell of a lot of fun doing it. I kid you not. When that camera is going and I'm portraying somebody that is totally out of who I am, that gets me away from that 9-to-5 job where tenants are bitching about this, that, and the other, want their security deposit back when they've ruined an owner's home. I'm tired of listening to it. I don't want to hear it. I want to have fun, and acting is a way to have fun, and it's a way to be somebody that I'm not, and it's my release. With Family Values, Rob allowed me to help him on the production side, and that just opened up a whole new realm for me because he was an ear that I was able to speak to, and he could see it from my perspective. Whether or not he wanted to use that was completely up to him, but I felt like I was a part of this. Other than just my one role that I played, I was able to help, especially towards the end, with scenes and with the videography that was coming on, being another set of eyes, trying to catch possible mistakes or make the scene look a little bit better. I was at a commercial down in Jacksonville, Florida earlier this year. And it was one they played during one of the golf tournaments, and it was millions of dollars worth of equipment, and that they had a huge budget for this thing, and some big known golfers. I couldn't tell you their names because I don't golf. I hate it. It's as boring as all get out. That's just me. So I did it, and just seeing the technology that they were using, the equipment and the drones going overhead to get these really cool shots, I was like, you know what? I want to be a part of that, but I don't want to do background. I don't want to do background anymore. I did background a couple times. I was in Vice Principals, HBO series Vice Principals. I was background for the second season for that. CBS, The Inspectors. I was background for that. Rob even told me, don't do background. Do not do background. The agents that I've spoken with, don't do it. It's just, if you want to be moving furniture, be background. That's what that is. I want to act. I want to get out there. It's hard to get into. It's an incredibly difficult field to get into. I will be perfectly honest with you. But the gigs that you get are phenomenal. They are so fun. When you go home and you're bored of an evening and you reflect back to, when you think back of fun things that you enjoyed, that's one of those things because all eyes are on you when you're doing whatever scene that you're doing. You've got to do it perfectly because it's your history when you leave this earth. It's your mark, when you're done. So if you've got, Scott, an interest in it, jump on it, have fun with it. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, you mentioned Vice Principals, by the way. I love that show. I watched every episode of it, and Walton Goggins I just love him.
Do you remember him in the previous show, Sons of Anarchy?
No, yeah. So I saw in his Wikipedia article that he had an SOA appearance, but no, I don't really remember what his character was.
Did you watch Sons of Anarchy?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah,
he was the transvestite that fell in love with one of the motorcyclists.
Yes,
that was him.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yep. Honest to goodness. So I'm like,
he made that whole show, in my opinion. I really liked him in that.
Well, Vice Principals or Sons of Anarchy?
Vice Principals. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I'm a big fan of Sons of Anarchy, and Vice Principals was interesting. One of the shows, the second season, was a party scene in a house in Walter's house because he got promoted to principal and he could afford this house. Yep. We filmed that scene over 4 days, and that food that you saw there was real food.
Wow.
They didn't move that food during the 4 days. They didn't refrigerate it. Nobody touched it. So by day 4, it was smelling like rotten garbage. It was the most disgusting thing you've ever smelled in your life. But we had to use it because it was what was there on the first day. And, you know, what takes an hour to shoot, in this case, took 4 days. You know, an hour's worth of work was 4 days worth. But those characters in that particular show, real good to work with. Real good.
Yeah, Larry here's kind of dabbled a little bit in the Mid-Ohio Valley here with some movies. Him and, of course, Rich Rule and some others. But Larry, the Bung Fodders, that was your last one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Bung Fodders make a horror movie.
Cool.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of what's kind of blown up here in the area as well for people. You know, you mentioned Daryl. You get one shot at these things. You know, you don't want to be on the other side with regret that you didn't try or step out of the box to do this or do that. And you know, that to be honest with you, that's kind of what brought this whole podcast thing together, because I'd never been in broadcasting or anything before my whole entire life, and this was just something that, you know, Scott had an interest in, and I thought, hell yeah, let's put it together and see what we can do. And like you mentioned earlier, Rob, you got to have, man, if you got to put 110% into it, if you can't be there, I'm sorry you can't be there, but just not going to work out.
I got to tell you guys too, I've never seen anybody with drive like Craig has. Like we'll get 4 cameras working. He'll be like, "Man, do you think we could have 5?" And then we'll get like, we get 4 mics on here, and our board is full, and we're like, "Man, I'd like to have 5 or 6 mics now." And then like he's always thinking of something new, something better, wanting to take it a step further.
We're going to need a bigger board.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's probably one of the most, I guess, disturbing for an actor parts of being in that business is the fact that most people, frankly, just never get an opportunity to undertake a speaking role of any kind, and that is what really will propel someone. There have been a number of actors who went on to be very successful that have had in the past background parts, and periodically I'll watch a movie and I'll happen to see somebody in the background that is now, maybe not a dominant actor or a predominant actor, but somebody that's seen. And I think Daryl can probably second this, but one of the biggest problems for somebody like Daryl is achieving that elusive speaking part. And the problem is that every actor or every aspiring actor wants to speak and they want to be heard. And one of the things that I, as a director, actually one of the most important things that I ever said on this particular production, and one of the things I'm sure that I said to Daryl individually, was, look, speaking and speaking roles is a wonderful thing. I myself, although I speak obviously in Family Values as the lead actor, obviously I've got to talk a lot, but I'm really of the school, probably what I call the Clint Eastwood school of acting, me personally, and that is that I am more about my nonverbal rather than my speaking. Speaking's important. It's got to make sense. It's impactful. But to me, probably one of the biggest compliments I ever got was from another director who said, "You've got," and the conversation that I had with a network representative who is my A&R contact with the network, who's been an actor for 30 years, and who's a known person, said, and I happened to say to him, I said, what did you like about the production, and what did you like about me? And I wasn't necessarily fishing for a compliment. I just wanted to know what, compelled him to say, we want this show. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, it was two things, essentially. And one was, I really like mob-related programming. He said there's a niche right there right now, and it's not being filled. And I'm a sucker for that, for that type of storyline. And the storyline that you have is somewhat unique because it's a mob / political drama that's set in the South, so it's a different type of elemental story. And he said the second thing is, he said, you have tremendous presence on camera. That's the biggest compliment any actor can get, and it doesn't have anything to do with speaking. And Daryl and I have had this conversation before, and when we initially met, I had this conversation with him, and he heard me as a director have this conversation with every single actor, and I think there were probably around 35 actors who took part in the production. And that was, in essence, guys, this isn't about what you say. I know you all want to talk, but being verbose doesn't have any impact on the production or for the viewer. What has the most impact is your presence on camera. So for me, it is those moments. Yeah, funny lines are great, and having a scene that is visually compelling is great. But for me, it's all about presence, and that's what compels me as an actor, to really deliver. So
I have to jump in real quick. That scene that we did in the in my room, it was a very powerful scene, and Rob has this look, and I don't know that he realizes he has this crazy look in his eyes, this very scary, intimidating, crazy look. When he didn't do it during the rehearsal because there was some actual physical contact that we had to go through, that we had to rehearse. He didn't do it during the rehearsal. He did it when they were actually rolling. It scared the hell out of me. And it's just a scene that we're recording. And normally, horror scenes or gun violence scenes or fight scenes, everything's rehearsed. But he gave this look, no words, this look, scared the shit out of me. I'll never forget it. And I've complimented him several times. I said, Rob, you got this look of fear that, will scare anyone. Ruth, but he's not kidding about the on-stage presence. I've seen it, Rob. I've seen you not only with speaking, but how you actually, those facial expressions that you give, it tells volumes. It really does. And it's amazing to see somebody up close like that actually do it, with no prompting whatsoever. He can go from, I'm just as friendly and as let's just talk about how the day is going, to that look. And that look, oh my God, let me tell you.
So do you practice these, Rob, or did they just come natural? You sit in front of the camera and do the Barney Fife thing?
No, I don't have to do that. I don't find myself having to do that. But and Craig, I appreciate what you said our last show before our business was left unfinished. So I'm back to finish the business today. But one of the things you said, and I really appreciated, and something that resonated with me, not much resonated with me, but at least this did resonate with me, is that you said, and I've heard this before, when you're trying to capture a character, or actually almost the opposite of capture the character, because the character isn't somebody I was portraying. It was actually somebody that I was, I guess, trying to bring to life. So when you're trying to animate this person, this third person who isn't you, what I've heard from a number of people that I guess I could refer to as my focus audience, including Craig, was nobody else could do this part because the facial expressions and the way you said this and how you inflected that or whatever. That's a big compliment too, but I guess that's how, in essence, that people make a particular character their own, is because you bring those, idiosyncrasies to that particular person. So
I was also curious too. Do you think your singing experience contributes to that also? Being able to command that stage presence.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, and the thing is, for me, is I'll always be a singer first. That's me. But it's all on stage. It's all a portrayal, and it absolutely helps. I mean, it certainly brings your comfort level up. But you know what? So many people. I had a guy say to me the other day that I deal with professionally, and he said to me, well, I've always wanted to act. And there's nothing wrong with anybody wanting to act whatsoever. And one of the things that I'm very confident about myself that I can do is if you think that you have the capability to act, the easiest person in the world to be is you. So that is another thing that I said to my actors is I said, look, for the most part, I just want you to be you. I said to Daryl, I just want you to be you. Yes, you're going to act differently than you typically act, but as long as you feel like you're being you, even if it's exponentially to the 10th power, it's a lot easier to deliver like that because you're more confident, in being able to portray yourself rather than, if I had to do Shakespeare, I would have a problem with that because that's just not part of me, at least to my knowledge. So
I don't know if I could play myself or not, though. That would be that'd be a challenge. My wife, on the other hand, I'm sure she could play me very well, but.
I don't know how to take that.
Well, I said to a director friend of mine who makes he makes some pretty good film. He really does. But one of the biggest obstacles that he has had, and he asked me probably a year or two ago. I did a portrayal for him, and he was trying to get something off the ground that never came to fruition. But he said, listen, I'm trying really hard to make this happen. And I said, well, you shoot, what you shoot looks really nice. And he said, well, what do you think the problem is? Be honest with me. What do you think the issue is? And I said, the issue is you got shitty actors. Shitty actors equals a shitty product. That's just all there is to it. And trying to garner from someone that they're not, and someone that they cannot deliver is futile. It never works. So you've got to get out of people what's within them. I happen to think Daryl. Obviously, Daryl's got two passports. He's got a sordid background. He might be fucked up. I don't know. But all I know is I saw something in him, and I said, this guy might be able to play this really quirky, crazy guy that's extorting money from this, really lethal mobster. And I think that he's got it within him. And he did. So I've taken, there was one actor in particular, and I know, and I appreciate you guys listening because I know you don't know any of these people. So it's just like, I don't know how interesting it is to you, but there was an actor, neither female nor male, I won't say, but there was an actor on our cast who was really not very talented. And this person is very nice and very well intentioned and has done some background work, but has never had a speaking role. And I think I got about 100% out of this person that I could get. But once I got that, then I was able, through the editing process, to bring together a really very convincing performance, if not a likable performance, out of someone that really wasn't a very good actor per se. But in the end, at least for the purposes of perpetuity, and I'm very cognizant of this because when you put something on film, guys, it's there for good.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
you
we
want
know.
to make sure, and
we have all
that's
these,
why I said,
we know that's we have our old shows to look at.
yeah, no kidding. What's up, Rich? Rich Rule just joined us. He's another one of the movie makers here in town. So,
hey, Rich.
Man, I had something I was gonna say, and it just went off as soon as Rich popped up there. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. Yeah. Shit, I hate when that happens. What about your what I like? Okay, here it comes now. I finally got it. One thing that I do like about you, at least I think you're like this. You come across to me like this, and Scott's another person that's like this too. And it's I like people to be brutally honest. I cannot stand a boss or somebody that will sugarcoat something. I would rather a person just come across to me and say, you know what, it looked like shit, or you look like shit, or you don't sound good. Do something. You got to do something to change. I would much rather a person do that. I don't know if some people just can't handle hearing that or what, but I mean, wouldn't you say, Rob, you know what, that scene really sucked?
I would, I guess, in mirroring myself, looking in the mirror and saying, what do you see in you? Yeah. One of the things that I definitely don't see is very much bullshit. That's just not me. I've never been really that type of person. I definitely think I have bullshit capability, but I just prefer to be not brutal per se, but just honest. And I think most people appreciate that. A lot of people don't, and that's understandable, I suppose. Although people who seem to be more straightforward and honest typically lose a lot of people or friends. But the friends that they retain, seem to be longer term, more lifelong people. So, yeah.
You know what to expect. I mean, and that's, I don't know. I've had bosses both ways.
No, I agree with you. I mean, people, for me personally, I think people know what to expect. I mean, I like to be that kind of person.
And as a director and as a producer, you got to have that. I mean, like you said just a little bit ago, you told the guy that he's got shitty actors. That's, there you go.
I mean, it was, well, and let me continue with that. So I told him that, and he was, I think he was a little bit dismissive at that time, and he's a guy with a big ego, and I said, listen, man, I'm just, I'm answering your question as you posed it to me, and was I saying to him that you should probably have me act for you? That's exactly what I was saying to him. If you want a good performance, you get good actors. That's just the way it is. So, and you're only going to get out of someone what they're capable of, and that's not their fault. You can sometimes bring more out of somebody that they didn't realize that they had. And I think in Daryl's case, and I sent a picture to you of the scene in Daryl's hovel, that probably, did you get that, Craig?
Would have come to Scott. I don't know.
Yeah, we probably haven't. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I sent a message.
That would be a no.
I'm new to this Skype stuff, so I don't know how to.
It just came over your messages.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Message.
Yeah, actually, we have two of them. We got one that says elect Anthony Morelli governor.
But if you look at that picture of Daryl and I, there is a perfect example of words. If you can,
we're going to throw it up on the screen here.
Okay.
Or Scott is. I shouldn't say we. I'm sitting here watching him do it. So
I know I'm taking you to new bounds of technology here, but
this is good.
It's exciting.
No, it is good. Yeah, it is good.
Daryl reminds me of the guy from Office Space, Stephen Root.
Yeah, yeah.
on
yeah,
the
right.
clip.
I can't laugh. I'm not seeing that. Sorry.
Well, you've got that. You've just got a little bit of that that quirk to you, that enough that you can tell, that somebody can tell that you can bring that.
There's that look I was telling you about. I kid you not.
Yeah, that was a scene that was shot in a disheveled, crappy, abandoned duplex, and that picture right there speaks 1,000 words. You don't need any dialogue. That tells the story right there, and that's delivering. In a nutshell, that's delivering.
Yeah, and you're right, because I can read your. I can read like Daryl is being very passionate, is what it looks like. And
right, and he's about ready to get his head split open.
Yeah,
yeah, he just pooped his pants, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and another thing, like you mentioned, the last time that you were on, Rob, where you did the head shake thing, when the guy's making excuses for sales.
Right.
And ask for a fucking weather report.
Yeah, that was that was like a riff off of Back to School, believe it or not. I use little things. I find myself using little things that I see that stick with me, and what was Downey? What's his first name? Robert Downey Jr.
Morton
played a crazy part in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. And Rodney Dangerfield, by the way, shared my birthday, and I thought a lot of him. But Robert Downey Jr. was in Back to School, happened to have given that head shake look at Rodney Dangerfield's son in the movie. And that's just stuck with me over the years. And that particular scene, when I was in front of my sales manager at the dealership, just felt right. And as I told you, that was also actually a true story based upon a car dealer here in Charleston who had called in from New York and spoke to one of his managers and asked how sales were going, and that was the answer he got about the weather, about the weather, and he proceeded to tell this gentleman that he didn't call for a fucking weather report. So it's funny. It's funny. That picture that you have up now, the gentleman on the left wearing the firearm is an actor by the name of Andrew Antonucci. And Andrew played my underboss, Enzo. And he and Daryl had an interesting, just kind of off-camera relationship, but Daryl gets tickled with Andrew quite a bit.
Yeah, he's funny. He really is. He doesn't mean to be. He just is. He's stupid funny.
Yeah, Andrew can't hit his mark either. As a director, that's a real pain in the ass. I've got a lot of footage of him out of focus because he, Andrew, do you think you could hit your mark? And he, up in the camera like this and back over here, just, has a hard. So I would have Daryl lay down a tape mark so that Andrew could literally hit his mark. So, yeah, the fun, all the technical aspects, that's the really interesting part. I think you guys would probably find that interesting, is just the technical aspects of blocking shots. And I think that's what a lot of people think is very glamorous, and it's actually it's a major pain in the ass is what it is. I mean, a lot of it. The finished product's really nice, don't get me wrong. But I think we did 21 days of shooting, and I'm going to end up with a movie that's I think an hour and 57 minutes long, out of 21 days of shooting, and it's just it's a major pain in the ass, really.
But you love it though.
I do.
What I've noticed, Rob, is a part of my career as an IT guy was 8 years of it. I was IT guy for a PBS television station and NPR radio station at a university, and one of the things I noticed is it's incredibly hard to light people without shadows.
Yes, absolutely. Lighting, there are things, I thought about this earlier, when you talk about, I don't know, everything is a learning process that we do. I think we can all agree on that. But and there were some things that that given the opportunity next time around that I would do differently. I'm really happy with what we've done. I'm really happy with the product. It looks good. It looks professional. The story is very viable. The acting is good, and it's. I think once you see it all put together, I think you're going to like it. But there are some technical aspects that I would probably pay a little closer attention to, and one of those things is lighting. Lighting is such a huge aspect of filming. But the thing is, look, it's all contingent on what was the movie that they just they booted Kevin Spacey, and they inserted the other very well-known actor.
Was it House of Cards?
Yeah, House of Cards is what I'm thinking of, but I'm sure you're probably thinking of a movie, not a series, right?
That they had him on.
Yeah, it was a feature film. Daryl, look that up if you can.
I am real quick.
Anyway, they inserted another very well-known actor into it, and I apologize, I don't remember his name, but they spent $10 million, guys, on 10 days of filming. $10 million. Regional filmmakers like myself don't have that kind of budget. And I know people who are very well known that don't have that kind of budget. So, a lot of times, you just deliver the best product that you can. And I've watched a lot of films and shows and shorts on Netflix, and I don't have any problem with the quality that we've produced at all. Actually, the quality that we've produced is very nice. But again, good acting. And a good story makes up for a lot.
Yeah, I have to agree. I have to agree with Craig though that I was impressed with the cinematography too. What I saw in the trailer, and you were critical of your lighting, but I was kind of trying to be picky of the two photos that you gave us, and I thought they were both lit very well. I didn't see shadows on anybody or anything, and everybody had good lighting on their faces and good skin tone.
Yeah,
looked good.
No, for the most part, I'm very, very happy with it. There are some places we had to shoot one scene on a bus actually, and the scene was actually written for a conference room, and I was having, Daryl remembers this, but I was having an exceptionally difficult time finding a conference room. And I do happen to know a lot of lawyers, and I think it was close to a holiday, and we just could not come up with a conference room. And then you've got 35 actors in the background, and all of them have schedules. The locations, the people that own the locations obviously have a schedule. So trying to coordinate all this can be a major pain in the ass. And long story short, we just could not put ourselves in a conference room to shoot this scene. And so we decided to do it on a campaign bus, which ended up being our transportation company's a party bus, essentially. I think a big Sprinter, a big Mercedes bus. And so the technical aspects in shooting on something like that is you've got bus noise, and it was hot, so we had to run the vehicle and run the air conditioner, and so it just kind of it just presents a lot of things, sound and some shadows, and then when you're dealing with natural light, obviously the light changes during the day, so it's a pain in the ass. It can be, but all in all, we got what we needed. But I'll say this, Scott, what I aimed for and I told our director of photography this right from the very beginning, because she's pretty anal about how she shoots and the lighting and this kind of thing. And I said, look, Julia, I said, I want you to realize one thing, and it's a reference to Sons of Anarchy. One of the things that I liked about Sons of Anarchy from a cinematography point of view is the fact that it looks real. Mm-hmm. It's very well lit and it's very well shot, but it looks real. And I like that realistic look. So from the very beginning, I said to Julia, I said, look, I said, I understand your technical thinking, and I understand, that you want it to look as good as it possibly can. But lest we forget that, let's keep it natural too. We want to have it not look like a reality show and somebody shooting with a camcorder. We want to give it that Sons of Anarchy kind of realistic look to keep it, to keep it realistic.
Hey,
real.
Rob, that Kevin Spacey movie and Wolf Wilson chimed in. That's Ridley Scott's All the Money in the World.
Okay, I'm glad you explained that. I didn't know what the comment meant, so thank you.
Yeah, that's what that's from. Yeah, we have a fan that's helping us out here. That's
hey, we had another question too, Rob and Daryl, and it's actually one that I'm curious about. And Rich Rule was asking, "Are you shooting in 4K?"
No, I just read that too, Rich. We're not shooting in 4K. No.
And also, how many cameras? Like I always hear about 3 camera.
Two.
Two. Okay.
2. For the most part, sometimes 1, generally 2.
Mm-hmm.
But again, and then there was a lot of second camera footage that I just couldn't use because of lighting inconsistency, and sometimes that's kind of a cool look. I know there was a scene, the second picture that I sent you, where the guys are around ostensibly a torture victim in a garage. That was shot with 2 cameras, and I actually used, during the edit on that particular one, we used both camera angles there, although there was consistently different lighting between the 2, but it made for kind of a cool effect, not on purpose, but I liked how it looked, and it kind of gave it a different effect.
That guy there on the right definitely looks like Mob. He's got Mob all over him.
That's Nicky the Greek. You've got Andrew Antonucci on the left, and in the orange shirt is who I refer to as Babe Ruth. This guy by the name of Tony Gentile. The third guy is Victor Martin. He plays my senior political advisor by the name of Hack Waters, and on the right is Nicky the Greek, and Nicky is my crooked Greek attorney.
Yeah, he looks like somebody that you would see roaming the streets of Las Vegas back in the day. Yeah, we had a really convincing. I wish in ways you guys could see more of it, and I know that you'll enjoy it. But yeah, we had a very convincing crew of people, and I might add too, it's not exactly easy to come up with ethnic type folks. There's not a lot of Italians in the South. I know I recall talking to a director of photography here when I was kind of scoping out people that I might want to team up with to shoot this, and this guy has shot a feature film before and has a pretty successful production company, and I made him look like a complete ass because he said to me back then, he said, "Yeah, you just can't make this film." And I said, "What do you mean I can't make this film?" He said, "Well, how are you going to pull off this kind of film in Charleston, South Carolina that's mob related? We're in the South. Where are you going to get Italians?" I said, I'll find the actors. I said, "I'm looking at you and talking to you about shooting the movie, not casting the fucking thing." So there it is.
So he was quick to tell me, well, as director of photography, I'm going to need to know what's going on. And I've got input. I said, "You don't have input into shit. You shoot the movie, and as you earn equity doing that, then I'll listen to you. Otherwise, I direct it and I wrote it, so I know what it's supposed to be. But that being said, no, it's not. It wasn't terribly easy to find some of the characters because you needed the real thing. And Nicky the Greek is actually a lawyer, so he's playing him. He just happens to look crooked.
What's the what about the guy that was in the chair there? What was going on with that scene? I mean, was he getting roughed up or what? I was curious about that.
At the very least, he was getting roughed up, no question about it. He was that part of the story. He was one of the ways that Anthony runs his illicit business is that he does it through dealer transfers. And for those in the automobile business, dealers, transfer cars,
right,
between dealerships. So when I was writing it, I thought, well, what a nice way to be able to, to ship contraband and money and drugs is through dealer transfers. So he happened to be one of the drivers. And back in the trailer, you may recall a scene where he was having a bite to eat with his buddy in a fish shop, in a fish and chips place, and he happened to talk too much. So Anthony directed his crew to handle that problem, specifically Hack and Nicky the Greek to handle that problem. So they handled it.
And he had a famous phrase in the movie too that I absolutely love.
He did, and we will not divulge that because that's probably one of the funnier moments in the movie right up front.
I see.
He had a funny line. So,
are all of the actors from Charleston? Then is that what I'm gathering?
For the most part, yeah.
Any kind of I don't know, with you actually not being from there, any, you don't know what it's like down here, and you don't know what you're dealing with. I mean, it sounds like you kind of dealt with that a little bit there with the guy saying you can't find any Italians down here.
I mean, that guy's not from here either. He was just an arrogant asshole, and that didn't work with me. Certainly not with my level of directness. So yeah, that strategy seems to never work with me. So, but that happened to be a resistance that I got. Look, I can tell you this, guys. One thing is for certain, is that when you go to create things like this, it's all resistance. So, when we were talking about the Bon Scott movie before, when you're talking about a fairly massive amount of money in that particular case, so, a $10 million budget, everybody wants a piece, everybody wants a say, everybody wants input, right, everybody wants something. So, as I told you before, to me, it came down to, look, we're going to push forward, and we're going to put something together, and it's going to culminate in something visual. Now, did things come together better than I would have initially hoped? They did, because things worked out pretty much like I wanted them to. But when it comes to making films, and this goes for A-listers, there's a ton of resistance out there as to why this will never work, why you shouldn't do it, why you won't get the money, why you'll never get greenlit. So there's a lot of negative out there. I just didn't happen to listen to any of that. I was very resistant to that after 4 years of dealing with, major filmmakers, major film studios. Not that all of them were incredibly negative, but,
How far ahead have you played this out in your head? I mean, do you already have past this one? Is it going to continue?
Yeah, Rob, is it going to continue? Good question.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, the thing about it is that when you end something like this, rather than write it, when you end something like this, it was very important. And I got to be honest too, some of this was done on the fly because, frankly, actors are like musicians. You can't really depend on them 100%. I mean, that's just the truth. We had to adapt at times, and I also had to adapt the story at times to, one of the biggest problems that we had is that when you talk about a Sons of Anarchy or a House of Cards or something like that, what are the elements that you expect? Larry can probably answer this. If you're gonna watch an HBO or a Netflix series like that, what are the aspects of a show that you're going to expect out of a Sons of Anarchy or a House of Cards?
Yeah.
You got an answer?
Oh yeah. So HBO, I immediately think sex, especially like Game of Thrones.
Well, there you go. That's what I was shooting for. That's what I was shooting for. So one of the major aspects, is you're trying to write this story, and there were some scenes written in there which would have certainly had additional impact and that I really wanted to shoot, but I simply could not cast an actress that was right for, the particular part to get it done. And it's a shame because those are scenes that we can certainly shoot later. But, there were scenes that required nudity or almost nudity or however, but they were just risque enough where I couldn't find a female that was, comfortable enough with that particular type of activity, which me frankly, and I'm not a pressure person when it comes to that, but that's kind of part of it too. So I didn't have a whole lot of patience with, well, I'll do it, but I don't want to do that. Well, then you can't do it because it's just not going to work. So we, left it at that. So
that's always tricky because then you always have the boyfriend or the husband too. Like, well, yeah, they don't want them to do it and stuff. I mean, it gets a little tricky.
Rich made a comment that said, I found you've got to be in sync with a DP, otherwise it won't work. That's absolutely true. If you're not in sync with your DP, it will not work. So the initial person I talked to, he was not a believer in the story having legs to start with. So no, that would not have synced very well and did not work. Daryl can probably, and I know Daryl's a big fan of our director of photography, but Julia is a wonderful person and also very professional, but she's very easy to work with. So that, from a creative standpoint, that made it really nice for not only me, but for everybody else on the crew.
Now, I don't know how personal this is, but are your actors, are they on some type of a payroll with you, or do they do it all voluntarily at this point? Or
I won't discuss terms because I can't. Okay. Everybody's under NDA for that.
Okay.
Terms, whatever.
Okay.
Rob, can I interject just a second?
Sure.
One thing that I observed in his production, and granted the budget was low, and everybody that was cast was aware of that, and even some of the production people, when they would cancel at the last minute, and I mean the last minute, I'm heading to the production site where they're going to shoot, and I'm getting a text from Rob saying, "You won't believe who just canceled on me." It hurts everybody because I've got a family that my wife works overnights at a local hospital, and we've got to make arrangements for our two children for me to take my time to come and do what I want to do. As I told you before, it's a passion. And when somebody cancels or somebody backs out or a place that obligated that we could shoot there, arrangements have been made and somebody cancels that's a significant part of that, they don't realize that, okay, they're backing out. It affects everybody. And for anybody that is interested in acting or interested in production, you're really screwing a lot of people, and they won't forget it when you don't show up when you're supposed to. If you've obligated, you're going to be there. Just like tonight, this thing. If one of us said, you know what, screw it, I'm not going to come to it, I'm too tired, I don't feel good or whatever, it hurts everybody, and that's not fair. It's damn selfish when somebody acts like that. And Rob many times got extremely upset, but you wouldn't tell it when he got there. But I could tell, after having a conversation with him, he was just furious or pissed or more so hurt that people weren't showing up and doing what they said they were going to do. And it just, for somebody like me, that I want to do this, I love doing this, I've made all the sacrifices I can to be here on this date for an indefinite period of time, you've just screwed me. And that's not fair.
Oh, somebody's dog's making an appearance.
That's mine.
Bring him on up. Let's see.
One of the biggest, and I can tell you, this is just not exclusive to. There are all types of budgets when it comes to film, short films, shows, whatever. Low budget, micro budget, feature budget, blah blah blah. It costs money no matter how you quantify it. It costs money to shoot. And I was asked to calculate, what did it really cost to shoot this? And in the end, it cost about $100,000 to shoot this thing. And that's like a micro budget. But I don't have any problem disclosing that because that's disclosed on IMDb. But and again, that number has no real relevance except to say that there are $10 million pieces of shit and there are $10,000 masterpieces. What was the one that was shot on camcorder, the horror film?
I was just
Blair Witch Project.
Blair Witch. That was a $30,000 project that absolutely, went viral.
And then I always think of Waterworld being the other example.
Exactly. That's the flip.
It wasn't that bad, really.
I thought so, too. I didn't think it was that bad either, but everybody was like, that was one of the worst movies ever made.
Well, for the amount of money, it certainly was. But the thing is about it is that if you watch, and I don't watch a ton of TV and stuff, but what I do know is that there is a lot of bad content out there that they spend a lot of money on. Mm-hmm. And some of it's been shot here, quite frankly. They tried a series here for CBS. Daryl, you may remember that. What was the name of it? It was a legal series of some type that they shot. Yeah. And they spent, I think they spent $5 million on the pilot, and it was just awful. And it never got picked up. So it's all really contingent in the end. And all we can do is go from focus, because that's all that matters is your focus group. I like your story. I like the comedy.
Reckless.
I like how it's shot. What was it?
Reckless.
Reckless, which was a piece of shit. And I was on, and I have not done very much background at all. I did a feature thing on a show called South of Hell. I happened to run into Mina Savari with my girlfriend downtown one day at dinner, and she said, "Are you on this show?" And I said, "No, I hadn't planned to be." Why? She said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And so because she asked, I did it, and because she was a star of the show, so whatever. But so yeah, I did it, and I had a nice experience and everything. And it was fine, but they did 6 episodes of that, and it never got picked up. And they spent, quite a bit of money on that. So it's really contingent on, first of all, it's contingent on the story. That's the story, and the writing have to be there, or it will fail miserably. And then the actors have to be convincing. So,
and then the drive in all of them.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean,
sure. But I guess my point that I was trying to get to was that I have seen plenty of cases on substantially paid productions bigger budget productions like Vice Principals and those type of shows, The Inspectors, where people no show. That's just an unprofessional part of the business that every director has to deal with, or no shows. But in smaller budget films, there are less layers of people. And in an HBO show, you've got a casting director, an assistant casting director, production assistants. You've got layers of people between them and the director and then the producer ultimately. And in an independent like ours, you just don't have that many layers. It's just more hands-on. So, yeah, when somebody no-shows, obviously I'm the first person to know about it. And but we got through it. That's the main thing. That's the bottom line. We got through all that, and we got our principal photography done, and all that's water under the bridge and doesn't matter. And anybody really that kind of screwed themselves out of being a part of it, that's their loss, at this point. So that's how you have to look at it.
Rocky is another. I think what was it, $10,000 or something like that?
I don't think it was that low, but it was.
Maybe 30,000. It was very, very low compared to what it became.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
that's exactly that type of success story, because it was about the story. It was how compelling the story was, and he passed on. Got his story. Wow, but he passed on production houses because he said, no, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to star in it, or I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And everybody resisted, but his gut feeling said, this is the part that I was meant to do. And ultimately, when he took on that role, he became, and the franchise became what it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sold his dog or something or other
He did.
I heard sold the dog. Bad. Yep. And then once he become what he become, he bought it back. But what about you, Larry? You've been awful quiet over there.
I have. Well, one thing I was thinking about, our first movie, going on to the people no showing. My first movie, it was like 26 people in our cast, and we have a scene with like 12 people in it, and then somebody calls me like 2 hours before the scene, is like, oh, I got called into work. And then you're like, hey, we got 18 people that have showed up, what are we supposed to do? So we've had people replaced within like 5 minutes of being on set, calling somebody up, say, hey, come on down, we got to shoot this scene tonight. So I know your feelings when you talk about people like not showing up. You just gotta chug through it,
Well, you do. You just have to adapt as you go, and so
or rewrite the
part. At times, literally, there are scenes that are written in the script that never got shot because of either inability to fill certain roles as needed, or having to. Well, I can tell you in one particular case, we had a gentleman not show in a scene that was shot at the fish and chips place. That was like the first scene, not the first scene we shot, but the first scene in the film. And it was, like most of the scenes, it had a lot of impact. And one of the speaking actors, 15 minutes before we're supposed to be on location, says, I can't be there. Doesn't matter why, whatever, it was bullshit. But the point of the matter is, when I showed up, I had to literally approach another actor who I knew was going to be there and who had been on sets before. And I said, do you think you're up for a speaking part? And he said, sure, what do you need me to do? Fortunately, it wasn't a very verbose part. It was just a few lines, but I said, listen, I'll give you the opportunity, just have a look at the script, and it doesn't have to be exact, but for editing continuity, try to keep it close, and we'll shoot it as many times as we need to till we get what we need, and even if we have to do it a piece at a time. And it was one of those particular cases, and you ended up seeing him. He was actually a guy by the name of Charlie Moore, who was in the very first part of the trailer. I think he had the the transfer driver by the shirt, shaking him. Charlie, that was a speaking part that Charlie was not cast for, but he adapted. I thought he could do it, and it worked out great for him. So he was very happy, and it worked out great. But those are the adaptations you've got to make.
Hey, Daryl, you talked about a couple of things earlier I wanted to follow up on. Number one was the amount of work being done in Georgia. Because I saw a behind-the-scenes thing once for The Walking Dead, and they had talked about the entire series being shot in Georgia. And so, what exactly has brought that on? What's made Georgia the place to shoot?
Well, I know Georgia offers a tremendous amount of incentives for movie makers, television producers, any type of production. Georgia is the state here in the Southeast. A lot of people are calling it the Southern Hollywood. Atlanta is pulling a lot of weight. Millions and millions of dollars are being pumped into the area for productions. For us here in Charleston, Savannah is, what, Rob, an hour and a half? Maybe an hour, 45 minutes. I don't know, with your Leadfoot, it's about an hour. Down south of us, so it's not far at all. So when there are productions that are called for in the Savannah area, us being up here in Charleston is still within that circular area that you're considered a local. And that's another thing. Most of the productions, if you're hired, they're going to hire you as a local. What does that mean? That means they're not going to pay for your hotel. They're not going to pay for your transportation to get to the filming site. You've got to foot the bill for that. They'll pay for your wage, whatever the contract calls for. But that's the trend nowadays is, if you've got to go to New Orleans for a shoot for NCIS New Orleans, they're going to hire you as a local. So even though you're getting a speaking part, you've got to pay some of the bill in order to get that opportunity. And it just goes with the territory. The flip side to it is it's a tax write-off. But South Carolina for a good while was having quite a bit of movies and films that were being produced and shot here. And we're still having activity here in the area, but it's not as prominent as our neighbor to our south, which is Georgia. It's an area that they have their game. And I'll give you another example. I don't want to bore you, but North Carolina really missed the ball altogether. They had a huge opportunity for production, and they absolutely blew it. And there were films that were wrapping up and pulling out of North Carolina heading to Georgia because Georgia's offering all of the programs that are available for the shoot. So a lot of prospective actors that are living in Florida and South Carolina, Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia is not that far. Even on the west side, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia is not that far away for you to be a participant in what's going on.
Do you know how interesting I'm finding this?
How interesting?
Really? Not. Zero. I don't give a shit about what they're doing in Georgia. I don't live there. Yeah, okay. Atlanta is the second Hollywood of the East. Who gives a shit?
It used to be Wilmington.
Yeah, it did. And UAE, is it UAE or UEA? Still has a studio there that they spent a lot of money on. But they're opening up another big studio in the, I think, an Indian reservation in South Carolina, towards the upstate of South Carolina. But, yeah, I don't care. I'm not involved with that.
Yeah, Pittsburgh used to be a...
Actually, I was thinking. So what I was thinking was Vancouver wasn't a lot being shot in Canada. I know Battlestar Galactica was, and I think they were doing something similar with a lot of tax breaks and.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they that's what the cities do. They will get a an errant desire to spur their film activity, and they'll offer rebates and tax incentives and all that kind of stuff. But you've got to be over $1 million on budget to be able to even take advantage of that stuff. So again,
So one other thing I wanted to ask you about, Daryl, and hopefully this will pique Rob's interest a little bit more, and we won't piss him off so much.
Unless we're talking about Rob, it's no interest.
You had mentioned the series in the UK. Is that still ongoing?
They've got two seasons. The first season just aired in its entirety in the UK. I think it's available on YouTube. And then I've gotten word that they are airing a second season, so they'll be filming that in Georgia, Rob, which I know is very boring.
Okay, so that was the question. I was wondering whether you were flying to the UK to do the filming.
No, that was filmed in Savannah. It was supposed to be. It was set in.
Oh, we just bored the shit out of Rob with that one.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm used to it. I'm used to it. So let's talk about politics before I get off of here.
All right, go for it.
Let's go to the. We were talking about the tax plan they rolled out, and I'm not sure exactly why everyone is so upset, but I can tell you this: the most important thing to realize right now, irrespective of what side you're on in that particular tax plan, is the fact that there is $21 trillion of undocumented adjustments that have been found through audit. $21 trillion that has been misplaced, maybe lost on a dealer transfer. I'm not sure. But guess what? $21 trillion would do a ton for our infrastructure and for good things, along with a strict reduction of entitlements and some oversight of fiscal spending. I'm not sure what people don't understand about economics, but it must be a lot.
So you're talking specifically about the allowing companies to bring money back into the states? Is that?
No, I'm absolutely not talking about that
at all.
Okay,
explain the missing. I didn't catch that.
Sure. There was an audit done, and the Inspector General found, and this has been verified and re-verified, there is $21 trillion that's gone missing. Mm-hmm. That's unaccounted for. Now, typically speaking, if I was overseeing a city budget, like in your city, I would say as a person overseeing that budget that 1% or so of that budget that was undocumented adjustments. In other words, let's say the budget was $10 million and 1% of that is what, 100,000? Okay. So $100,000 of that I could accept, would be acceptable to me as being undocumented. In other words, you didn't get a receipt for an expenditure, in essence. The federal government, however, has, I guess, without the proper oversight and the, I guess, the philosophy that a debt-based economy is acceptable, and because of the spending habits of our elected officials, because it doesn't affect them, we have a lack of accountability, and we don't know where $21 trillion went. Mm-hmm. It's undocumented. So, in other words, they didn't get a receipt for the $21 million that they spent. That's a big problem. That's a huge, huge amount of money. Mm-hmm. That we have no idea where it went.
So what on the other side of it, you were going to talk about the tax plan. Is your taxes going to go up, or is it going to go down in your area? I mean, how's your state taxes? I think that's what it's based on. Is
well, I mean, let's start with a premise. It would really be nice. And in this particular case, where Trump is, I think, making a valiant attempt to be transparent and trying to deliver on what he said he would do, I wish one of the things he said he would have done was to abolish the IRS and all of that apparatus and just go to a national sales tax type thing, because it would be much simpler.
Now you're talking my language. I've always liked national sales tax.
I mean, it's just it's easier to absorb. It's easier to deal with. It's just part of the cost of living and doing business, but it eliminates a huge apparatus.
And I always thought it was fair. Whoever's buying the most pays the most. Yeah,
it is fair.
That's why you'll never see it. Is because the rich don't want to pay more.
Yeah,
Forbes was all over that. That was one of the things that he ran on when he ran. And
but to be on the side of saying that, look, when you cut taxes, obviously, yes, you want those tax cuts to affect, middle class people. So, and hopefully, and I haven't read all of it, but if for example takes it from 7 brackets to 4 or whatever the number is, to simplify it, any simplification is great. But to think that it's a bad thing to allow large companies to bring, as you said, that $4 trillion, I think, something like that.
Yeah, the offshore accounts. Yep.
Back in from offshore. To think that's not advantageous to anybody but the companies is just short-sighted thinking, in my opinion. In other words, the more rich people and rich companies you have, just by attrition, yes, they have more money, but they're going to do more with that money, which means people's income goes up, the consumption goes up. And yes, you can call it trickle down if you want, but the more money that is trickling towards the bottom, I in my personal opinion, economically speaking, I think that's more advantageous. But with that has got to come oversight and got to eliminate entitlements and abuse and expenses. In other words, did you guys ever see the movie called Dave? Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've not.
Okay, Dave was friends with Dave was the president of the United States.
I am the president of the United States. Yes,
correct. And he had a friend who was played by Charles Grodin.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Grodin was an accountant. He invited Charles Grodin to the White House to look at the books, and Charles Grodin looked at the books and said, if people balanced their checkbook like this, they would be broke. Mm-hmm. So they sat and they cut and they did this and they did that and they balanced the budget. Simplified example, but until we see integrity and honesty in reporting and cutting expenses and regulation and all that stuff, and it's never going to be perfect, but to allow a $21 trillion amount of money to essentially go missing. Some of that's for secret shit. That's fine. We get that there's, the secret budget. We get that. But not $21 trillion. In fact, there was an expenditure, I think the operating budget of the United States Army, I believe, if I'm correct, was $180 billion. And in one single transaction, there was an expenditure of like $800 billion in one transaction as an expenditure to the Army. So there have been things going on from an accounting perspective that are very, very troubling. And there's a lot of money, which is all of our money, that is supposed to be allocated only by Congress, that is just been surreptitiously pissed away. And that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
So that's scary.
Well, I can't wait. I hope to have more money in my pocket. Even when Clinton was president, I mean, whatever he did in the White House is his. I don't want to say it's his business because it's not his business, but what he didn't affect me having money in my pocket. And as long as
the economy was doing great then.
As long as I have money in my pocket, and places are hiring people, not just myself, but everybody. I'll be happy. I don't care who the fuck it is.
Exactly.
It's funny though. But I think I'm the only Democrat that isn't upset about the tax plan, and maybe it's just because I'll benefit from it personally because I use standard deduction, so I'm gonna make out on standard deduction, and I make over that number that they said, so I'm going to make out there too.
What happens is that you know, this is the damage and the problem with misinformation is that if a particular party does not get what they want, the habit has been to engage the propaganda machine.
Sure.
And frankly, the press is not an arm of the government. That's not what they're there for. They're supposed to be an objective outlet to report on the truth. However, it has been engaged and used as, you know, a propaganda arm of the government. And what happens with that? Well, you use it to further your particular agenda. Both sides have done it, but
I was going to say you're talking about Fox News, but
yeah. Well, we talk about that here. Either way, we talk about that on the show here often. The fact that there's no gray anymore. Everything is absolutely one side or absolutely the other side.
It's scary how polarized it is. It's scary because it just shouldn't. It shouldn't be. It should not define people. And what is becoming really troubling to me personally is the fact that it seems to me, and I don't care what party somebody's affiliated with, that doesn't have anything to do with anything, but when people seem to stop being Americans or patriotic versus a party line, man, I got a problem with that. I've always had a problem with that.
Yeah, country first, yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I one of the things you were talking about, you know, you were talking about something that you grow really tired of, and it's also politicians now that absolutely refuse to compromise whatsoever. They absolutely will draw a line in the sand, and there will be zero compromise whatsoever, and you will never get anything done or anything accomplished.
No, and that doesn't help the American citizen. The American citizen is the one that has to hurt from this day after day after day. You look at other countries that are very successful in the medical coverage and the taxation of their citizens. Learn from how they do it, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Adapt what other countries are doing very successfully and apply it to how this country works. That's how we can get ahead. We're the laughing joke of other countries. We have been for many years. No offense, Scott, but Obama took us back many, many years, and Trump is having to fix a lot of the mistakes that he made. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 4 years. We're a country that has been on the track of demise, and we're heading in a bad direction, and this divided country is not going to unite until things get accomplished. And if everybody's digging in their heels, that's not going to happen easily.
You know, to begin with, I think one place where Trump messed up for sure was trying to, and it's probably because I know it's part of because he's not your average politician. He's not a politician. He come in there with the boardroom idea that he could go in and he's going to pass this bill and
my way or the highway.
But yeah, and that didn't work out. That didn't even work out with the Republicans. So,
right,
I was glad to see, you know, at least
he's learning the ropes.
Yeah,
he is.
Yeah.
There's a learning.
He
curve
passed
there.
1 bill in a year. I'm happy for him. Yeah.
There's a learning curve there because politics is different than business. I mean, his thinking, I think, was proper. He thought, well, I can come and do this like I run a business, which would be great, but it's not how it works. So there is compromise involved. However, it doesn't matter which way we go. We've got an integrity problem. That's the biggest problem. One of the things that fixes the one thing I should say that fixes the vast majority of the problems that we have or political divide is money. That's the one thing. More money in people's pockets and jobs tends to fix a lot of problems because it just puts people in a better frame of mind, literally, and mood and their lifestyle. It lifts people.
I totally agree. I got to tell you, I'm going to feel much better about President Trump if I've got more money in my pocket at the end of this tax plan.
I mean,
so, absolutely.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? The guy
and the other thing I got to tell you is the stock market seems to freaking love the guy.
And they should because he's a businessman.
Yep.
So that trend that you see on Wall Street makes sense.
Yep.
So that's a good thing as long as it's not artificial.
Exactly.
But you know, the biggest challenge we've got And here's where I've got the biggest problem when it comes to party, and I really consider myself independent, but the integrity issue is a huge problem for me. A criminal is a criminal, and there have been some major arch criminals involved in the government, and I don't care what party they're affiliated with, they need to be held accountable because they are public servants. And what I find extremely interesting about the average person, who we all are, is I'm not sure how somebody in good conscience looks at somebody, for example, like Bernie Sanders, who is a wealthy person and has taken advantage of every perk that you could possibly take advantage of, including possibly some illicit activities on the part of his wife, allegedly, but comes out and I guess preaches or proselytizes to the public about how there is so much inequity. There's no inequity for you, motherfucker. Your ends are meeting like nobody's business. Okay? So I find it interesting and humorous at the same time how gullible people are when they're watching somebody that's paid 174,000 years as a congressman, or he's a senator, right? Sorry. But who is very, very well paid, along with all the perks and expenses that are covered. Those are not average people at those incomes. They're just not.
But Rob, you find everybody plays to their base. I mean, Trump plays to his base when you know that there are some of that base that he doesn't agree with.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. But there's one difference between him and, I guess, your career politicians in general. He was rich to start with.
Sure.
So he really doesn't need to be bought, per se.
Gotcha. I see where you're going with that now.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So
I do.
There's not the inherent integrity issue. You know, if you take somebody who's never had anything, no matter how good their intentions are, they're still they're easy to tempt.
Yeah. With
money, because money is a very tempting thing. So the integrity level for the normal person is probably a lot less than. Yeah. And the point is, too, with him, I really sincerely don't believe the guy is out to get the country. I don't believe he has an agenda to want to ruin the country, whether you agree with him or not.
I don't
think he wants to ruin the country, but I think he wants the rich to get richer.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, don't all capitalists.
The more rich people we have, the better.
Yeah.
The more
but it's the same rich people. I don't think it's more rich people. It's just the same rich people getting richer.
Well, I hope that's not the case. So, it needs to.
So the one thing I'll say about Sanders, back on Sanders for a minute, because I was one who was kind of mesmerized by the message, and it's the fact that if you're an idealist, he had a hell of a message for idealists. If you're an idealist, is the stuff about free education was great, free medical was great. But then you got to go to the practical part of it is fantastic ideals, but how do you pay for it?
In a debt-based economy, it's terrific, and and I will allude to a very famous person who was by the name of Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler had he was democratically
wonderful
elected.
Social program, right? Yeah.
He had a wonderful social program, and he was voted in democratically, and to gain the support of the people, what did they do? They built the Autobahn. They invested in the country. People were given free holidays. Everybody was very happy. Everybody was on board. But he was an expert using the propaganda and also in spending other people's money. And you have to be aware of the fact that when you put these people in office, they are the purse strings to our money, and they are not accountable at all. Sure. And it's sickening. So then when you want to see trickle down, what trickles down is you can't get a road that you can't drive or that you can drive down without tearing your car up.
Yeah. Because
the money for that, and I'll go right back to the undocumented adjustments. You got $21 million right now that nobody can account for. That's a lot of money. That's a ton of money. So all those dollars matter, and when they're not placed properly and accounted for like they're supposed to be, it's an integrity issue. That comes from both parties. That comes from government. And there are patriots and good people who are trying to correct that. Trump doesn't need to be bought. He doesn't need the money. He's already wealthy. So I've always, for a long time, I have wanted a non-career politician to hold that office just to see what would happen, just to see if they could, gain any traction. And
I got to admit, I've said that many times before there ever was a Trump over the years. That, yeah, I would like to see a businessman one time try to run the country as a business.
But here's the here's the problem. And here's what doesn't matter when it comes to what political philosophy you adhere to. None of this matters. What does matter is that you have got arch criminals who are participating in high treason, high crimes and misdemeanors. I mean, I'm talking serious crimes at the expense of the American people, and that's what's really causing huge problems fiscally, socially. Forget what party you're affiliated with. If there's low integrity, that means criminal issues.
I think that and politics go in together. I think, like you said, both parties, it's just low integrity.
I know.
I mean, when you talk about, everybody talks about like Hillary's emails and stuff, and then you also had like Rumsfeld emails. They deleted like 2 million of them when they were told to produce them. So I mean, it just goes, like I said, every 4 years it seems like we have more criminals. You know what I mean?
Right. So that's why I was hoping that a non-establishment person might be able to come and make a difference. And I think he's trying, but I think he was initially overwhelmed. Now he's learning the game a little bit. But what's sad about it is that, I mean, it'd be like if one of us all of a sudden held that office. Well, of course you would want to go do the right thing. It wouldn't be about the money. You'd just be like, look, I'm a patriot. I'm an American. I want to go do the right thing for everybody. I'm going to try to do everything that I can to help people. But you've got this cabal of scumbags surrounding you that are doing everything possible to keep you from helping people. Mm-hmm. And that's what the government's really there to do. It's our apparatus to support, and protect and serve, the citizenry. And it's just become about ego and money and personal gain. And with that type of bullshit attitude, I don't see how anybody could expect anything positive to come from that.
It's very hard for a president to succeed nowadays because of what you're talking about.
Right.
Because, and you saw this on both sides. You saw when Obama got elected, there were people out there who did everything they possibly could to, to illegitimize his presidency. And now you see with Trump elected that you've got people out there who will do absolutely everything they can to illegitimize his presidency. It's
right,
and it ties into that lack of compromise and unwillingness to that, that if I'm a Democrat, only Democrats can succeed, and if I'm a Republican, only Republicans can succeed. And exactly what you said, we need to get America to succeed.
I agree.
Yeah.
So we just get up and leave?
I have no idea.
He's like, I'm done.
God, if it was that easy, Scott, I'd have had you talk a lot earlier.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, they're both working to ruin our country for some reason and not to work for us, is what it seems like. Either side. I'm not, like I said, I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat. I just call them as I see them. It just seems like both parties are working against each other all the time. Yeah. And like I said, we don't get any benefits from that,
Yeah.
So Rob, I'm with Scott with regards to if you're going to give money back to the people, that's where it's going to be spent best. I'm not for increasing taxes at all. because it's very clear that the government does not know how to spend it. I mean, it's crystal clear. When you've got struggling families, struggling veterans, that burns me more than anything, that have served this country very well and that are being treated as poorly. They should be put on red carpet. They should be given the best medical care that that money can buy. They should be given adequate housing for what they've been through for this country. To find them on the streets, not being able to survive with no budget at all, that's not the country that I want to be a part of. And those type of things need to change.
Yeah. Hey, Rob, you would while your transition there out of the picture kind of brought up that I remembered you said earlier you needed to leave at 8 p.m. So I just wanted to make sure we're not holding you up here.
No, I'm gonna leave here in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, the integrity issue is the biggest issue. There's no need pointing fingers towards any one president. You know, all have done some good things and all have done some bad. But one thing that's definitely out of control, irrespective, is our fiscal irresponsibility. So you can't have a debt-based economy and be successful, and that's what we've had. So what's troubling to me is if you go, I guess, to a place like Dubai and you walk into one of their airports and you look at the cars driving in the street and you look at the infrastructure and it's all top notch. There's absolutely no reason. Why is our country not like that? Why is our country not experiencing the standard of living that, you know, Dubai is or whomever? Because we're a very wealthy country, but the problem is, you know, when they start talking about income disparity and social disparity and that kind of thing, again, what will cure a lot of that is jobs and people being able to be, you know, to raise themselves financially. That's always going to help. And all of the good things that come with that, with spending and consumption and all those good things, the more money that's circulating from an economic standpoint, the better macroeconomically that the country is. But the level of irresponsibility and the criminal activity has got to go. I mean, it's got to go. That's the part that needs to be rooted out. Because in the end, when you're talking about, you know, when greedy people get greedy, especially greedy at that level, when people taste that, you know, you're not talking about somebody's trying to steal a $100 bill. You're talking about millions of dollars that they, you know, that they have in their sights. So when you see people that get involved in embezzlement, for example, you know, you've got somebody that'll steal $5,000 and they get a taste of it. Once they get their $5,000, then they want $50,000. So once they get a taste for that, you know, their sights go up very, very quickly, astronomically. So. And the American money pot is big, right? It's a big treasury to steal from. Who's going to miss this? Who's going to miss that? So that's my political rant.
That was good. That was a good discussion.
Thank you so much.
No,
I hope everybody benefits. I want to see everybody. I want to see everybody get wealthy, and I really want to see the level of irresponsibility socially go away. The entitlements have got to go. It just doesn't help anybody.
I can't wait to have more money to invest into the podcast.
There you go.
Well, Rob and Daryl, we appreciate your time, your views, and sharing with us your family values. Cannot wait to see it. I mean,
yeah, it looks good.
Hopefully, we can get a little sneak peek preview before anybody else does. We would like that a lot, but if you can't,
we'll Siskel and Ebert you if you send us an advance copy.
Yeah.
I would like Christmas cookies, but I don't have any right now.
But seriously, thank you guys very much for your time this evening, and Rob, you again, I appreciate it. Always a great speaker.
Post your shipping address. I'm about to bake this weekend.
Oh man, what? That would be awesome. Hey, I'm gonna sit in with you guys. I'll sit in with you guys periodically, and
absolutely. Yep, for sure.
I enjoy it.
And
Daryl, good luck in your future acting ventures.
Why, thank you very much. Y'all got a good thing going. I'm all of a sudden becoming a fan of your show.
Well, good. It's the little independent guys like us that make the big things eventually, right?
You've got a good thing going. Don't stop it.
No, you do. Right. You do. I watched. I found myself watching your podcast last week. So, hey, you build one person at a time.
Those guys, by the way, are crazy.
That was a good show. That was a good show.
Yeah.
I like that one. That one turned out much. I was pleasantly surprised by the outcome of that show.
But good group of guys.
We had a great 2017, as you just said, and we expect nothing less than a bigger 2018. We've already got some people lined up. On January 7th, we got Jeff Simmons. He's a Parkersburg native. He's an author for Silver Shot, is his book, and we're going to have him on here January 7th. That'll be our first show for 2018.
Right.
And I just hope everybody out there in Facebook land, you find the drive, the goal or dream or whatever you want to call it. Don't call it a resolution, but find some sort of thing that makes you tick and something that makes you just eat up and want it more and go after it. Because I mean, that, I said it before, but this podcast is a good example. That we just went after it and we want to do it. We both have the same drive to make it bigger, and I hope everybody else finds that drive and finds the thing that makes them tick. Like you all with the acting, I just want to see everybody one day not be 92 years old or 100 years old and regret that they didn't try something or do something.
Well, I'll leave you guys with this, and it was my pleasure to be here, and I hope to do it again. I especially enjoyed having Daryl on as well. And I hope that you guys have a great 2018. And I really appreciate the fact that you had us on the last show of the year for you. A guy that I had a couple of conversations with was a guy named David Cassidy, who you, I'm sure, all know.
Yep.
And David recently passed away. And I'll leave you with this, because we lost a lot of good people this year, and we lose good people every year. And I want, like you, to see everyone achieve everything that they can and be happy people and have a great life. But David's last words were, a lot of wasted time.
Yeah.
A lot of wasted time. So don't waste your time is the mantra from that. Don't waste your time. Make something of your time every day if you can. Shoot for something. Swing for the fence. God love you, and I hope you get everything that you want. That's the way I think. That's the way I think we should approach it.
Yep, great advice. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks again to both of you. Thank you, Larry, for coming over today.
Guys.
We appreciate that.
And Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Merry Christmas to you too. Take care.
Thank you.
Well, what do you think? Hey, we want to say real quick too, Craig. We want to plug that we're going to be taking over the MOV What's Happening page and doing a Roberts Report podcast on it. What is it, the 28th?
Yes, our first one. I'm very excited for that one. January 28th, every last Sunday of every month. Terry has, like you said, graced us with being able to take over the MOV What's Happening, and I have no idea what's going to happen there.
Yeah, This is going to be new ground for us.
And we look forward to everybody supporting us over there in MOV What's Happening world. So we will see you all in January and see you in 2018. I hope everybody has a great Christmas, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. Designated drivers, peace. Peace out.
Straight
out, Craig.
Peace.